He didn't knock twice. He kicked the barn door open before his mind could stop him. The lantern light shook in his hand, and the gun came up without thought. "Don't move." His voice cracked low. Silence hit first, then a breath that wasn't his. "Please," a woman said from the dark, "don't shoot." He stepped in slow, boots grinding dust. "Show yourself." The lantern swung. Two shapes near the far wall. One crouched. One small. The small one didn't move at all. "We ain't here to steal," she said quick. "Then why hide in my barn?" he shot back. The woman pulled the child closer. "Because they'll kill us." He didn't lower the gun. "Not yet." "Who is they?" She shook her head. "You don't want that answer." The boy looked up at him then, eyes too wide, too still. No blinking. No sound. Just watching. "How long you been in here?" he asked. "Not long," she said, then softer, "long enough." He circled a step closer, lantern lifting higher. Dirt on their clothes. Bare feet. No horse. No pack. "You walked?" She nodded once. "We ran." "From the law?" he asked. "From worse." The word sat wrong in his chest. Worse than law meant trouble that didn't wear a badge. "You got a name," he said. She hesitated, then said, "Mara." The boy didn't speak. "And him?" "Eli." The boy flinched at the name like it hurt. He noticed that. Filed it away. "You armed?" he asked. "No." "You lying?" "No." He held her eyes. She held back. That told him more than the answer. "You can't stay long," he said. "Just tonight," she rushed. "Just let us breathe one night." Something tapped the outside wall. Soft. Slow. He turned his head sharp. The gun followed. Nothing there but wood and shadow. "You hear that?" he said. The boy whispered before she could stop him. "They found us." She grabbed his arm hard. "Quiet." "Who's out there?" the man asked. "No one," she said fast. "That's the problem." He stepped to the door and pushed it open a crack. Night pressed back at him, thick and empty. No wind. No horse. No tracks fresh in the dirt. Just stillness that felt wrong. He shut the door again and slid the bolt into place. "Listen to me," he said, turning back to them. "You don't make noise. You don't light anything. You don't step outside. You understand?" "Yes," she said. "Yes." The boy nodded slow, still staring. "And if someone comes?" she asked. "Then you don't exist," he said. "You hide deeper than you already are." The lantern flame dipped, then steadied. He felt the air shift like something had moved through it. He didn't turn this time. "You got family?" he asked, softer now. She swallowed. "Not anymore." "They take them?" "No," she said. "We left before that." "Why?" She looked at the boy, then back at him. "Because staying was worse." He let that sit. Worse again. Same word. Same weight. The boy leaned his head against her shoulder, but his eyes never left the man. "You don't blink much," he said. The boy answered quiet. "I don't need to." The woman closed her eyes like that hurt to hear. He watched them both, something in his chest tightening slow. He lowered the gun an inch. "Not all the way. Not yet. One night," he said. "Then you're gone." "Thank you," she whispered. He shook his head once. "Don't thank me yet." The tapping came again, softer this time, like fingers learning the shape of the barn. He didn't look back at the door. Neither did they. The boy smiled a little. "They wait," he said. He left the door bolted and stepped back into the barn, lantern swaying in his hand. The air smelled of hay, dust, and fear. "Sit," he said. They both obeyed without argument. The boy sank into a corner. Mara crouched beside him, her arms tight around his small shoulders. "You can stay," he said. "One night. Not more." Her eyes flicked up, hope warring with caution. "Thank you," she said again. "Don't thank me yet," he muttered. He circled the barn slowly, studying the dirt-streaked walls, the empty stalls. No one had been here recently, not really. "You got any supplies?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "Just what we carry." He noticed her hands, rough and torn, the same as his own when he worked the land. "Food? We didn't eat much today." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Of course you didn't." Outside, the wind sighed, but it didn't move the barn door. Something about the stillness made him uneasy. "Anyone comes, you don't speak," he said, finally meeting her eyes. The boy didn't answer, just blinked slowly. He frowned. "When's the last time you ate, kid?" "I don't remember," Eli said. That made him flinch. "Don't remember? You're 10. You should remember." "I don't need to," the boy said, voice flat. Mara's hands tightened on his shoulders. "Stop asking," she said. "I need answers," he shot back. "I said enough." She glared at him, sharp, protective. He held her stare. They were fragile, but not weak. "Not yet." He leaned against a post. "How long you been running?" "A week," she said. 10 days. "From who?" he asked. "From worse." That word again. Worse. It crawled under his skin. Something in the boy's stare confirmed it. He didn't blink. Not once. He looked at him like he'd seen everything. He dug a small corner near the hay bales, piling straw for them to rest on. "Not comfortable," he said. "I'm used to worse," Mara muttered. He didn't respond. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the boy's soft breathing and the lantern's weak flame. Footsteps? He froze. Nothing moved outside, but the barn seemed to grow heavier. He checked the door. Bolt secure. "Hear that?" he whispered. Mara shook her head. Eli's lips twitched. "They hear everything," he said. That stopped him cold. Not her words, the certainty in the boy's voice. He glanced around. Dark corners seemed to lean closer, listening. "Why hide in my barn?" he said. "We didn't know where else," Mara admitted. "And I don't take kindly to strangers in my barn," he said, voice low. She swallowed, shivering. "We didn't have a choice." "Choices always come," he muttered. The boy tilted his head toward him. "Not this time," he said. That stillness again, too old for a child. He sank onto the straw across from them, lantern between them. "All right," he said. "You stay. One night. One. And if you make noise, if you step outside, I swear we won't," Mara interrupted. "Good," he said. "Now, eat. Drink. Sleep if you can." Eli shook his head slightly. "Don't need sleep." Mara shot him a look. "Quiet, Eli." He whispered anyway. "They come if you close your eyes." He frowned at the boy. "Who?" "They wait outside," Eli said. He could hear the fear in her sigh. "Outside who?" he asked, voice tense. "Everything we ran from," she said. Silence filled the barn like smoke. He stared at the boy, noting the lack of normal movements, the stillness. This wasn't ordinary. He swallowed hard. "Tomorrow," he muttered. "Tomorrow, you leave." The boy tilted his head, not blinking. Mara nodded. "We will." Outside, a branch scraped the wall once. No wind. No sound. Just touch. He exhaled slowly. "Sleep if you can," he said, but he didn't believe it. The barn was no longer a shelter. It was a trap waiting for something, and he wasn't sure who or what was coming first. The morning light crept between the slats, weak and pale. Elias kept the lantern lit anyway. Mara shifted beside the boy, brushing dust from his hair. "We need to talk," he said. "No," she said sharply. "Not here. Not now." "Too late," he muttered. He stepped closer, hands resting on his knees. "You can't stay silent forever." Eli didn't move. His eyes followed the light like it carried a warning. "Why hide in my barn?" Elias asked again. "Because we have to," Mara said. "Because if we don't," she trailed off. "If you don't what?" he pressed. "They'll kill us," she said finally. Elias' jaw clenched. "Who?" "Lockwood," the boy whispered. The word made the air in the barn turn heavier. Elias froze. "Lockwood." The name carried weight, like iron in your gut. Mara's eyes widened. "Don't," she hissed. "Too late," he said. He leaned against a post, watching them. "Lockwood?" "Yes," Mara said. "That's why we ran." The boy shivered. "They don't forgive." Elias shook his head. "No one runs from them." "We did," she said. Her voice cracked. He studied her face, desperate, but proud, a fire beneath the fear. "Then you're already dead," he muttered. "I'm not," she said, voice firm, but her hands trembled as they gripped the boy's shoulders. "You're hiding in my barn." "That's already dead," he said. Silence stretched. Only the soft squeak of the lantern hinge broke it. The boy tilted his head. "They follow us," he whispered. "Even here." Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why him? Why the boy?" Mara's lips pressed thin. "Because they took everything else." He shook his head. "Everything?" "Almost everything." Her gaze fell to the floor, dust clinging to her bare feet. "I won't tell you more." "Then I'll figure it out," he said. "I don't want you to." "Too late," he said again. Something about the boy's stare unnerved him. Unblinking, too old, too knowing. "What did they do to him?" he asked. Mara's eyes darted away. "He's changed," she said softly. He frowned. "Changed how?" "Different," she said. "He survived." The words hung in the air, sticky and wrong. Elias swallowed. That stillness in the boy, the unnatural quiet, it was beginning to make sense in the wrongest way. "Do you know who I am?" he asked Mara suddenly. She flinched. "Elias Carter," she said, voice barely a whisper. The lantern flame flickered. "You know me?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not well. But enough. You wear their dust." "I don't wear anything anymore," he said, though the words felt empty even to him. "You buried people for them," she said. Silence. He glanced at Eli, who had turned his head just slightly, listening. "I buried my brother because of them," Elias muttered finally. Her eyes softened. "Then you know what running means." "I do," he said. "I know too much." Eli whispered again, "Graves don't stay closed." The words made Elias' stomach twist. He turned, lantern swinging, expecting a shadow, a figure, something. Nothing. Just the boy. Just Mara. Yet the barn seemed smaller now, pressing in. "You brought more than fear in here," Elias said. Mara didn't answer. The boy tilted his head. "They're patient," he said. Elias' hand dropped to the gun at his hip, but he didn't draw it. "We'll see," he muttered. The barn waited. Outside, the wind didn't move. Nothing moved. But something was coming. He could feel it, a quiet, heavy thing, and the name Lockwood burned in his chest like a warning he couldn't ignore. He took a slow breath. "One night, Mara. One night, and then you leave. Understand?" "Yes," she said, but her eyes darted to the boy. "We'll see," he added under his breath. Eli smiled faintly, too knowing for a child. The barn held its breath with them. The word Lockwood hung in the air, heavy, unsaid, like the promise of more to come. Elias leaned against the post, lantern light shaking across the barn walls. Mara's eyes never left him, sharp and wary. "You weren't just anyone," she said quietly. "No?" he asked, voice low. She swallowed hard. "Elias Carter," she whispered. The name hung in the barn like a warning. "You wore their badge," she said. His hand itched toward his coat, but he didn't move. "I buried people for them," he admitted. Her lips pressed tight. "You don't get to say that and still hold your chest like a man." He didn't respond. The boy shifted in the corner, Eli, eyes still wide, unblinking. "Sheriff gave it to you," Mara said, voice breaking. "I threw it in a grave," he said. Her jaw tightened. "A grave doesn't fix what you buried." "I know," he muttered. "I know." The boy tilted his head. "You buried my world too," he said softly. Elias looked down at him. Small frame, still too quiet. "Your world?" he asked. Mara glanced sharply at Eli. "Don't," she hissed. "Too late," the boy said. Elias' stomach turned. Something about the certainty in his voice made the barn feel smaller, heavier. "I didn't bury your world," he said, but the words felt hollow. Mara shook her head. "You buried their world. And mine. And now he's left to see the pieces." Elias studied her, tried to understand the depth of her fear. Not just fear, rage wrapped in grief. "You ran from them," he said. "Yes," she said. "And you shouldn't have. You're hiding in a barn that's already full of graves." The lantern cast flickering shadows across the hay. Elias swallowed hard. "I didn't come back here to punish you," he said. "Then what?" Mara asked. "To see what remained," he said. "To see if anyone could survive what I couldn't." Her eyes softened briefly, but then tightened again. "Survive?" she spat. "You think surviving means living?" He didn't answer. The boy's gaze stayed on him, unblinking, like he had already decided. "You know," Mara said, "what you did for them won't make a difference here." "Not with him." Elias froze. "Him," he said. The boy lifted his chin. "I don't sleep," he said. "I don't blink." Silence hit like dirt on old wood. Elias swallowed. He had buried more than people, he'd buried truths, and now they clawed back through a child's stare. Eli's voice was soft but carried weight. "Graves don't stay closed." Mara's hand tightened on his arm. "Stop it," she whispered. Elias studied her. Her fear was a shield, brittle but strong. He turned to the boy. "You understand what I mean?" Eli nodded slowly. "Everything you bury comes back." Elias' hand fell to the gun at his hip. Not for the sheriff, not for the Lockwoods, but for whatever this boy was. Mara's gaze pierced him. "You left one grave open," she said. "One you thought wouldn't matter." He swallowed hard. He remembered the corpses, the badge, the night he threw it into the dirt. That grave had never closed. Outside, the wind scraped against the barn walls. Elias felt it like a warning. Mara's voice broke through. "You can stay here tonight," she said quietly. "One night." He nodded. "One night," he repeated. The boy shifted slightly closer to her. Silence stretched, broken only by the soft scrape of a loose board in the rafters. Elias kept the lantern between them, light trembling across faces worn by fear and time. He had walked into this barn expecting to shelter them, but now he realized the barn was shelter only in name. It was full of shadows, full of history, full of graves. And none of them stayed closed. Elias exhaled slowly. "Tomorrow," he said, voice low. "You leave." Mara's eyes flicked to the boy. "We will," she said. Eli didn't move. He never blinked. He just watched, like he knew this night would change everything. Elias felt it too. One night wasn't enough. Not for graves. Not for truth. Not for the weight of what they carried. Outside, the wind moaned against the barn, but inside, it was silence, tense and thick, waiting. Elias stayed by the lantern, watching shadows stretch and shrink across the barn walls. He could hear it before he saw it, a soft, dragging step that didn't match the floorboards, didn't match anything outside. He froze. Mara stiffened beside the boy. "You hear that?" he whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. "It's them," Eli said. "Already here." Elias frowned. "Who's here?" The boy didn't answer. He never did. He just stared, unblinking, like the weight of unseen things pressed into his small chest. Another step. Inside the barn this time, slow, deliberate. Elias swung the lantern toward the sound. Nothing. Just shadows stretching across the hay. "Stop," Mara hissed, gripping his arm. "Stop what?" "Asking questions," she said. "They listen." Elias' jaw tightened. "Who listens?" The boy tilted his head. "Everything that follows." The words were soft, but they cut deeper than a knife. Elias glanced at the walls, the stalls, the rafters. Every shadow seemed alive. He stepped closer. "You're scaring yourself." "No," Mara said. "Not myself. Him." She nodded toward the boy. Eli's gaze never left the shadows. "They come for the living and the dead," he said. Elias' hand fell toward his gun, but he didn't draw it. Fear was one thing. This was something else. Something older. Something patient. A loose board squeaked. He swung the lantern again. Nothing. Just dust motes dancing in the light. "What is this?" he muttered. "Punishment," Mara said. "Punishment?" "For what we ran from," she said, voice low. "They don't forgive. Not you. Not me. Not him." Elias studied her. She looked fragile, but the grip on the boy told him otherwise. "And him?" he asked. "Why doesn't he cry?" Mara shook her head. "He doesn't need to. He survived worse than you can imagine." "What did they do to him?" He tried to keep his voice calm. "He's not like other children," she said softly. Elias exhaled slow. The barn felt smaller, heavier, like the walls themselves were leaning closer to listen. Another step, louder this time. Slow. Echoing. He swung the lantern. Nothing. "Elias," Mara said, "don't." He didn't lower it. He needed to see. But the boy's voice stopped him. "It's here," Eli whispered. Elias' stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "It followed me out," the boy said. "It waits." Mara pressed her hand over his mouth. "Don't," she warned. But the words didn't matter. Elias could feel it too. Something pressing against the air, heavier than gravity, older than memory. He swung the lantern over the hay bales. Shadows. Always shadows. But something else. Something small and impossible moving in the corner of his vision. He took a slow step back. "You brought it here," he said, voice tight. Mara shook her head. "I only brought my son. He carries it." Elias' heart hammered. He glanced at the boy. Eli tilted his head. "It waits," he repeated. "It waits for blood, for truth, for what we buried and left behind." Silence hit the barn, thick and suffocating. Elias kept the lantern between them, light trembling across their faces. He couldn't look away. He didn't want to. Outside, wind scraped against the barn boards. Inside, only the soft scrape of something without feet. Step. 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 Elias lowered his voice. "Then we don't move. We don't make a sound. We survive tonight, we survive the morning. Understand? Mara nodded. Eli tilted his head, expression unreadable. I understand, he said softly. Elias studied him. That voice, it wasn't childlike. Too steady. Too knowing. Good, he said finally. Then stay here. Don't blink. Don't sleep. Don't let it see you. The boy's lips twitched faintly. It will see, he said. Elias felt it too, the pressing presence, closer than the walls, older than the beams. Footsteps without feet. He gripped the lantern tighter. Mara squeezed the boy, whispering, "Be quiet, Eli." He exhaled slow. One night. That's all they had. One night. Outside, the wind howled, scraping against the barn boards. Inside, the shadows waited. Step. 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 The barn smelled of hay and fear, heavy and raw. Elias kept the lantern steady, though his hands were tight around the handle. Mara's eyes were on the boy, but her jaw was set like steel. You need to tell me, he said. Tell you what, she replied, voice taut. Everything. Why you ran, what you're hiding. She shook her head, shoulders stiff. You won't understand. Try me, he said, stepping closer. The boy didn't move, eyes wide, unblinking. I already understand more than you know, Elias muttered. Mara looked at him then, and her face cracked, just a little. If you go any further, I can't protect him, she said. Then I walk out, he said flat. Her silence was answer enough. She pulled a deep breath and whispered, I killed him. Elias froze. The lantern flickered between them. Who? He asked, voice low. Mara's hand trembled as she gripped the boy's shoulder. The Lockwood son. His stomach twisted. You what? Her eyes met his, fierce and unyielding. I made sure he'd never touch anyone again. The boy didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, watching. You're insane, Elias said. No, she said. I'm alive. That's the difference. She pressed a hand over her mouth. He hurt my boy. Elias swallowed hard. So you killed him? I did, she said, voice quiet but certain. And now they want me dead. The barn grew heavy with silence. Elias studied her face. Lines of fear and defiance tangled together. You know what this means? He asked. Of course I do, she replied. But I had no choice. Choice always comes, he said. Not always, she snapped, voice shaking. She crouched lower, holding the boy close. You don't understand. You haven't seen what he did. You haven't seen what they do. Elias exhaled, slow and low. Then show me, he said. She shook her head. I can't. It's worse than anything you can imagine. And it follows him. Elias glanced at the boy. Eli's eyes stayed wide and still, watching him, unblinking. Something inside that small frame was wrong. Not childlike. Something older. Something broken. Why did you tell me this? Elias asked, voice tight. She looked up, eyes glistening. Because hiding in my barn won't save us. And I can't lie anymore. Elias's chest tightened. He felt the weight of every word, the gravity pressing in. And the boy, he asked. He saw it all, she whispered. He remembers everything. Elias leaned against a post. Everything? The boy tilted his head. Even when I died, he said softly. Mara's hand trembled on his arm. He shouldn't be here, she said. Elias swallowed. Then why is he? Mara's eyes flicked to him, voice tight. Because I brought him back. Elias stared at her. You, what? I didn't ask, she said, voice barely audible. It happened anyway. He's different now. And they're coming for him. The lantern trembled in his hand. Coming? They'll take him, she said. Or worse. They won't forgive. Elias studied the boy. Eli's lips twitched faintly. It waits, he said. Mara gasped softly, pressing her hands over his mouth. Don't, she whispered. Elias felt the barn shrink, press in tighter. Shadows stretched longer, moving just at the edge of vision. He exhaled, slow and steady, but his heart pounded. You can't protect him forever, Elias said. Mara shook her head. I know. But I'll try. She tightened her grip. And if they come, he asked. Then we face them, she said. Together. Elias glanced at the boy. Eli tilted his head, expression unreadable. Together, he whispered, and the words sounded older than the voice should. The barn held its breath with them, dark and heavy, filled with hay, dust, and the weight of what had been done. Outside, the wind scraped against the barn wall. Inside, silence waited for the next move, patient and inevitable. Elias gripped the lantern tighter. One night. That's all they had. One night to survive what was coming. Elias watched the boy, small and still in the corner, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the barn air. Eli didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't breathe the way a living child should. When did he last sleep? He asked Mara, voice low. She didn't answer. When? He pressed, eyes narrowing. Not since that night, she whispered. The words hung in the air heavy and wrong. Elias' hand went to his gun instinctively, though he didn't draw it. Not possible, he muttered. Mara's lips pressed tight. Nothing about this is possible, she said. He took a slow step closer. What happened to him? She looked away, voice breaking. He died, she admitted softly. Eli's eyes never left him. Small, unblinking, unafraid. Then what is he? Elias asked, voice tense, low. Mara's hands gripped his shoulders. I don't know, she said. He studied the boy. Too still, too quiet, too old in ways that no child should be. The lantern light trembled against his sharp features. Elias swallowed hard. And you didn't tell me this before? Mara shook her head, eyes glistening. I couldn't. I had to keep him safe. He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on him. The barn was small. The air was heavy with hay, fear, and secrets better left unspoken. The boy's voice cut through the silence, soft but steady. I don't need sleep anymore. Elias froze. His heart thudded. What do you mean, don't need sleep? I'm awake, Eli said. Mara's hands pressed over his mouth. Don't, she whispered, but the boy didn't stop. Elias' eyes narrowed. You can't be awake like that. You're 10 years old. I am, the boy said. But I saw things. His voice was calm, too calm, as if he carried the weight of centuries, not years. What did you see? Elias demanded. The boy tilted his head slightly, expression unreadable. Things that live in the dark. Elias glanced at Mara. She shook her head, silent. I warned you, she whispered. I tried. Elias paced a slow circle around the barn. Things in the dark, he asked again, though he already felt the answer in the pit of his stomach. The boy's lips twitched faintly, almost a smile. They follow me, he said. Even here. Elias tightened his grip on the lantern. Shadows clung to the corners, shifting, moving just at the edge of vision. You brought this here, he asked Mara, voice low, almost trembling. She nodded. I only brought my son, she said. He carries it. He swallowed hard, feeling the air grow heavier, as if the barn itself was listening. Can he be stopped? Elias asked, voice tight. No, Mara said. Her eyes glinted with both fear and defiance. Not by anything alive. He looked at the boy. Eli tilted his head again. It waits, he whispered. Silence fell like a thick blanket. Elias exhaled slowly, gripping the lantern tighter. He could feel the pressure, the patience, the weight of something older than the barn, older than the walls. Footsteps? No. Not footsteps. The barn held its breath with them. Shadows shifted again. He glanced at Mara. She held the boy closer. One night, he thought. One night. That's all they had. One night to survive what they couldn't see. Eli's whisper broke through again. They never sleep. I never sleep. I'm awake with them. Elias felt the chill spread down his spine. Mara shivered beside him. Be quiet, she whispered. But the boy didn't move. He only watched. And waited. Elias exhaled hard, lantern swaying in his hands. Darkness pressed close, patient, unrelenting. One night. That's all they had. One night before what came next. The barn air felt thicker than before, heavy like wet wool pressing against Elias' chest. Eli's eyes were wide, unblinking, and the boy didn't move, didn't breathe the way a child should. Mara's hands clutched his shoulder, knuckles white. Tell him, she whispered to Eli. The boy tilted his head, voice calm, steady. I remember the ground. Elias froze. What do you mean? Cold, Eli said. Then dark. Then a door opened. His words hung in the air like smoke. Elias' stomach twisted. A door? Under the dirt, the boy said. Something pulled me. Followed me out. Mara pressed a hand over his mouth. Stop, she whispered, eyes darting toward the corners of the barn. Elias ignored her, leaning in. Followed you out? Yes, Eli said. And now it follows us. Elias gripped the lantern tighter. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching like they were alive. What is it? He asked, voice tight. I don't know, Mara said. We only know it waits. Elias swallowed hard. Waits for what? Balance, Eli said softly. It doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. Elias stared at the boy. You're speaking riddles. You're a child. You don't speak like this. I'm not like other children, Eli said. Mara shook her head, lips pressed tight. Stop asking questions, she said. It doesn't answer to you. It only follows. Elias' chest tightened. The barn seemed to lean in closer. Every shadow shifted. Every corner held weight. Something was moving, just beyond the light. He could feel it, patient, quiet, waiting. Another step scraped across the floor. Elias swung the lantern. Nothing. See? Mara whispered. It doesn't need to be seen. Then how do you survive? He asked. Don't let it touch you, Mara said. Don't blink. Don't sleep. Don't let it find you. And if it finds me, he said, jaw tight. Then you're gone, Eli said softly. The boy's voice carried certainty that no child should have. Elias felt it settle in his gut. You brought this here, he said, voice low. Mara's lips trembled. I only brought my son, she said. He carries it. He survived, but it didn't leave him. Elias swallowed. Shadows clung closer to the walls. Lantern light flickered. Dust motes danced like sparks. The barn was no longer safe. Eli's lips twitched faintly. It waits for what was taken, he said. For what we buried. Elias' chest tightened, heart hammering. You mean, my brother? Mara's hands gripped the boy's shoulder tighter. Everything you buried, she said. Everything we tried to escape. Nothing stays buried. Elias' stomach sank. He glanced at the boy. Small, still, unblinking. Too knowing. You brought a curse here, he said quietly. Mara's gaze pierced him. He is the curse, she said softly. And he survives it. A soft wind scraped the barn walls. Elias felt the air shift, heavier, patient. It's here, Eli whispered. Mara pressed her lips together. I warned you, she said. Elias' hand hovered over his gun, lantern shaking. Footsteps? No. Something slower, older, patient. Something that didn't belong. The barn seemed alive, pressing closer to them, breathing. Shadows stretched across the floor like fingers. The boy tilted his head at him. It waits, he said again. And Elias knew it was true. He exhaled hard. Lantern trembling, gun at his side, he could only stare at them, at the boy, at the mother holding him. One night. One night was all they had. One night to survive what had followed them out of the earth, out of memory, out of graves. And Elias understood, in a way that settled cold in his chest, whatever this thing was, it wouldn't stop. Not for any of them. The barn pressed in, shadows moving, patient, waiting, and he had nowhere to go. The knock came sharp and deliberate, echoing across the barn like a warning. Elias stiffened, hand on the lantern. Mara's eyes widened. Eli tilted his head slightly, unblinking. They found us, the boy whispered. Elias pressed a finger to his lips. Not yet, he said. Another knock, louder this time. Wood groaned. Dust stirred. The barn felt smaller, the air thick with tension. Mara whispered, It's the law. Elias frowned. Not them, he muttered. Someone else. He adjusted the lantern. Shadows leapt along the walls. The boy shifted just enough to peek around Mara. You shouldn't open it, she hissed. Elias went to the door, hand on the bolt. Who's there? He called. Silence. Then a voice, low, familiar. Elias Carter. I've been looking for you. Elias froze. The lantern light trembled across the barn floor. Sheriff Callahan, he said, voice tight. Mara stiffened. We can't let him in, she whispered. Elias shook his head. We have to hear him. The knock came again, more insistent. Open up. It's the law, Callahan said. Elias pressed his hand against the door. Law, he muttered. The word tasted wrong. Outside, the wind rattled the boards, sharp. The barn held its breath. Inside, shadows moved just beyond the light. Mara's voice was urgent. Don't. He'll see him. Elias glanced at Eli. The boy didn't move. Didn't blink. He only stared. I don't care what he sees, Elias said. Not anymore. He opened the door a crack. Sheriff Callahan's eyes scanned the barn. His hat shadowed his face. You've been avoiding me, he said. I had to, Elias said. There's nothing to talk about. There's always something to talk about, Callahan said. His eyes flicked toward the corner, toward the boy. Elias stepped in front. Don't look at him, he said. Mara gripped his arm. He'll know, she whispered. Let him, Elias muttered. Callahan's gaze hardened. You're hiding someone, he said. Who? Elias asked. A child. A woman, Callahan said. Tell me it's not true. Elias shook his head slowly. It's true. But they're mine to protect. Mara's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're dealing with, she said. Callahan stepped closer, lantern light cutting across his badge. I know enough, he said. I've seen what you leave behind. Elias' chest tightened. They're not what you think. Callahan's lips pressed thin. You brought something back, he said quietly. Something that doesn't rest. Elias swallowed. I didn't bring it, he said. It followed them. Eli's voice cut softly, steady. It waits, he said. Callahan's eyes flicked to the boy. Elias felt the weight of it, the unnatural stillness in the child. He's changed, Mara said. Callahan's gaze didn't leave the boy. Changed how? Elias shook his head. You wouldn't understand. Try me, Callahan said. We've buried too much already, Elias muttered. This isn't one of your graves, Callahan said. No, Elias admitted. It's worse. Mara pressed the boy to her chest. Worse, she repeated. Callahan exhaled slowly. Then we face it, he said. Together? Elias asked. Mara's hand tightened on the boy. Together, she said. Eli tilted his head slightly. Together, he whispered. The barn held its breath. Outside, the wind scraped against the boards. Inside, the shadows seemed heavier, stretching, waiting. Elias glanced at the boy again. One night. That's all they had. One night to survive the law, the shadows, the thing that followed them, and the truths that would not stay buried. The sheriff stood in the doorway, silent, but the weight of his presence pressed down. They were all caught together now, in the small barn, waiting for what was coming next. Elias stood in the center of the barn, lantern in hand, shadows flickering against the walls. Mara held Eli close, but the boy's eyes never left him. Unblinking. Too knowing. Elias exhaled, slow and heavy. Tell me everything, he said. Mara's lips pressed together. Everything, she whispered. He nodded. I need to know. Before it's too late. She swallowed hard. He's not just a child, she said softly. Eli, he didn't survive by chance. I made sure he would. Elias' heart skipped. Made sure? Mara's eyes met his, fierce, unwavering. I killed the one who hurt him. The Lockwood boy. He felt a chill slide down his spine. You, what? I did what I had to, she said. He would have killed him. Or worse. I couldn't let that happen. Elias sank against a post. Lantern shaking in his hands. So you killed a child to save this one? Mara's jaw tightened. I saved both of us. She glanced at Eli. He carries it now. Whatever followed, whatever waits, it's inside him. Elias stared. The boy's small frame seemed impossibly still, impossibly quiet, but somehow heavier. Older. The weight of everything Mara had done pressed into the air. He swallowed hard. And you never told me, he said. Never. I had to protect him, she whispered. Eli's voice cut softly through the tension. It waits. Elias' chest tightened. I know, he muttered. The lantern light trembled across the walls. Shadows stretched toward them, patient, pressing closer. Why bring me here? He asked. Because you know how it works, Mara said. You buried people. You know how nothing ever stays buried. And now it's chasing us. Always. Elias exhaled, slow. He remembered the graves, the badge, the nights he'd tried to bury memory, hope, and truth. And now it had come back in the eyes of a boy who didn't sleep, who didn't blink. Callahan's voice cut through from the doorway. Elias. We can't stop it. But we can face it together. Elias nodded, chest tight. Mara pressed the boy to her chest. If it comes for him, she said softly. We fight, Elias said. We survive. Together. Eli's lips twitched faintly. Together, he said softly, voice steady and older than it should be. Elias felt the weight of it settle in his chest, a gravity he couldn't shift. Shadows shifted in the corners of the barn. Footsteps? No. Something slower, older, patient. It didn't move like living things. It just waited. Elias knelt slightly, hands trembling. I thought I buried the past, he said, voice low. I thought I could leave it behind. Mara pressed her hand over his. You can't, she said. None of us can. He looked at the boy. Eli's stare was calm, piercing, silent. It's in him now, Elias whispered. And it will never let go. Mara nodded slowly. I know. That's why I did it. That's why I hid him here." He exhaled, slow, and the lantern shook in his grip. "The truth breaks my heart," he said softly. Mara pressed the boy to her chest tighter. "We survive it," she said. "Because we have to. That's all we can do." Outside, the wind scraped against the barn boards. Inside, the shadow seemed alive, pressing, patient. Elias lifted the lantern higher. The boy's eyes met his. Unblinking. Knowing. "One night," he said. "Then what?" Mara whispered. Elias shook his head. "Then we face it. Together. Or not at all." The barn held its breath with them, dark and heavy, full of hay, dust, graves, and secrets that would not stay buried. One night. One night to survive. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to face the thing that followed them from the earth, from memory, from truth. The lantern flickered, shadows danced, and Elias felt the full weight of it settle in his chest. The boy, the mother, the past, all of it pressed down on him. He exhaled, slow and steady. One night. That's all they had. And in that moment, the truth broke his heart. But he would fight anyway. By mid-morning, the town was still, but the weight of what had happened lingered in every corner, every board creaking under the sun. Dust swirled lazily along the streets as the townspeople remained near the square, hesitant, silent. The well sat uncovered, raw earth exposed, a dark reminder of what had been hidden for years. The whispers had faded, soft now, lingering only in memory. "We remember. We remember. We remember." The cowboy stood at the edge of the fence line, boots pressed into dirt, shoulders heavy. The mother and children were gone. He blinked and saw only the empty fence, quiet and patient. The air seemed lighter, the land somehow softer, as if it had exhaled for the first time in decades. Yet the memory of their presence hung in the light, a ghostly imprint of accountability. "They're gone," he muttered, voice low. But the truth pressed down. Their absence didn't erase the reckoning. It had been done. The town had seen, had heard, had felt. Every buried choice, every act of silence, had been dragged into the open. The past had been acknowledged, and that acknowledgement carried weight heavier than any dust. The sheriff approached slowly, hat low, boots crunching against the dirt. "They won't return," he said. "Not because the reckoning is done. But because they've done what they came to do. You all remember now." The cowboy swallowed, jaw tight. "The town, what happens now?" "You live with it," the sheriff said. "Every day. Every choice you make now carries it. You remember the cost. The silence. The complicity. And you don't repeat it." A woman from the crowd wiped tears from her face. It's all still here," she said, voice shaking. "Even if they're gone." "Yes," the sheriff said. "That's the point. Memory can't be buried forever. The land, the fence, the well, they all hold it. And now, so will you." The cowboy stepped forward, running a hand along the old wooden fence. Smooth where hands had pressed before, rough where years of neglect had left their mark. He could feel the weight of the past in the grain, in the boards, in the posts driven deep into earth. It wasn't just a fence. It was a marker, a witness, a reminder. The family had been a living extension of that memory, and now the fence itself carried their presence.